I'm Henry Lawson, 83 years old. That morning, as I poured myself a cup of hot black coffee, the sound of tires crunching over the gravel driveway made me look up. I've lived here for over 40 years, on this piece of land by Silverwood Lake, and I knew that sound didn't belong to any of my neighbors. Before I could even set my cup down, my son Daniel walked straight in. Behind him came his wife, Vanessa, and their 2 young children. 7 large suitcases dropped onto the living room floor with a heavy thud, cold, confident, and far too permanent to be just a visit. Vanessa didn't offer a greeting or a smile. She looked me dead in the eye and said, in a firm, commanding tone, "You'll be moving downstairs. The upstairs is ours now." I simply smiled, not out of shock, and certainly not out of fear, but because I've heard far worse declarations in my lifetime. They thought they'd come here today to rearrange my life. But what they didn't know was that today was the day I began rewriting the entire game. If you were in my place at that very moment when your own son walked in and claimed the top floor as his, what would you do? Share your answer in the comments below. And if you believe that sometimes justice begins in silence, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell because this story is only just beginning. Tires crunched over gravel. The grandfather clock struck 3 times. The door opened. Sunlight cut through the curtains, stirring dust into motion like memories being shaken awake from their long sleep. A gust of cold air swept in, carrying a foreign perfume that drowned out the familiar scent of pine wood that had lived in this lakeside home for over 40 years. I'm Henry Lawson, 83 years old. They didn't notice that my hands were still steady as I set my coffee cup down on the old oak table, the sound soft but deliberate, like a seal of ownership in a story they thought they were writing. "Dad, you should move downstairs. It'll be more convenient," said my son, Daniel, slipping past the grandfather clock I'd inherited from my own father. His voice tried to sound gentle, but the way he climbed the stairs, one step, then another, without asking, without looking back, spoke louder than words. Behind him, his wife Vanessa lingered just long enough to sweep her eyes across the room. Her gaze was slow, cold, calculated, like a real estate agent silently appraising every inch, every object, every memory for resale value. 7 large suitcases sat in the middle of the living room, blocking the staircase dark as markers of occupation. Vanessa brushed her fingers over the glass of the grandfather clock. "This thing is a bit old," she said. I answered calmly, "It keeps my father's time. It stays here." Her eyes paused on a framed photo of Margaret, my late wife, her smile reflected through the glass, soft yet enduring. Vanessa typed something quickly into her phone. Jasmine, my granddaughter, saw it and whispered, "Mom." Her voice was so small only I heard it. The scent of floor cleaner mingled with perfume, coating over the old wooden smell the scent of memory itself. I felt a pulse at my wrist, but the cup didn't shake. Vanessa placed her car keys on top of Margaret's photo, whether by accident or intention, I couldn't tell. Jasmine quietly picked them up and set them back in place. "Guests usually call ahead," I said evenly. "But it seems today you brought your entire itinerary." Vanessa gave a faint smile. "We're just optimizing a bit, Dad. Some things could use an update for consistency." I nodded without looking at her. "Congratulations. You've just taught your father the art of silence." From upstairs came the sound of drawers opening and closing once, twice, 3 times. The rhythm of quiet invasion, each thud counting down to the moment I once called this place home. Ethan, my grandson, kept his head down, glued to his phone. The screen flashed just as I said, "It's good to see you again." No one replied. Only the chirp of a TikTok notification filled the room, the voice of another generation, another world. In my mind, memories returned in waves. When Margaret was here, this house was never cold. Even surprise visits carried laughter and the faint scent of her pies from the kitchen. We bought this place in the late 70s, cracked walls, leaking roof but full of hope. We rebuilt it together, weekend after weekend, until every stroke of paint bore the mark of our love. Now, My son wandered through it like a contractor inspecting a property he'd just acquired, while his wife graded every memory like a line item on a spreadsheet. The sense of safety I'd spent 40 years building had turned into a relic from another life. I looked toward the staircase. A suitcase blocked the way. A white envelope peeked from a stack of mail on the shoe rack, its corner showing the words, "Silverwood Clinic appointment Thursday, 10 a.m." I made a note of it. On the fridge, a sticky note fluttered slightly in the draft. Almond milk divided by move items from master divided by chef, 10 a.m. Vanessa's handwriting. Jasmine glanced at it, then quietly peeled it off. I looked up at the grandfather clock still ticking steadily, unbothered by the noise. It wasn't keeping their time, it was keeping mine. Because I'd once spent 30 years as a contraband inspection technician, and today I was beginning a full inspection of my own house. The scrape of suitcase wheels on hardwood squealed through the air. Metal clasps clinked. A lighter flicked somewhere nearby. An invasion that didn't need to break a lock, only to borrow the name of love. "Daniel," I called, my voice as flat as the lake outside. "What's going on here?" His voice drifted down from upstairs, smooth and patronizing in that way adults use when they've already made decisions for you. "We told you, Dad. Your house needs some fixing up, so we'll be staying here for a few weeks." "I don't recall you telling me that." "Maybe you just forgot," he said softly, so softly it tasted like salt. "Comes with age." Midday sunlight sliced across the room like a fine blade, exposing dust and distance. Vanessa appeared on the landing, her face arranged into a mask of concern, convincing enough for strangers. "We won't bother you for long," she said with a smile, setting her perfume bottle on the dining table as if planting a flag on newly claimed land. "All right," I replied carefully. "But what about the bedroom upstairs?" "You shouldn't be climbing stairs," Daniel interrupted, stepping up beside his wife with a trained smile. "At your age, one slip could end everything. The downstairs has a bathroom. It's much more practical for you." I looked him in the eye. That look was rehearsed, the kind of sales pitch refined in front of a mirror 100 times. This wasn't spontaneous. This was scripted. "I've climbed those stairs for 48 years, I said, my hand brushing the cold metal railing, a memory frozen in touch. Vanessa paused by the fireplace, her smile gliding like a knife through silk. "And we want to keep you safe, Dad. Let us help. The house will feel a little more organized." "This house was organized before you even learned to read," I answered simply. One suitcase sat dead center in the living room, declaring territory. On the fridge, a loose sticky note read, "Almond milk divided by move items from master bedroom divided by chef 10 a.m. Vanessa's handwriting. Jasmine glanced at it and quietly peeled it off. Ethan snapped a selfie, the sparkle filter flashing across my eyes just as I said, "It's good to see you again." No one replied. Only the sound of tick-tock notifications filled the silence. Ting, ting. I walked into the small room beside the living room, the one that used to be for guests, now renamed my room in their private script. A single bed against the wall. A wooden dresser whose drawers stuck when the air turned damp. No proper closet, just a storage corner dressed up as a bedroom. I set my hand on my coffee cup. The cheap lavender scent overpowered the old oak's aroma. The house had changed its smell and its soul. Upstairs, the zipping of suitcases echoed ZRT, ZRT, ZRT. 3 zips, a countdown to a long stay. Daniel's duffel bag hung over the sofa where Margaret once folded laundry. Vanessa's silk scarf lay across the armchair where Margaret used to read mystery novels and sip tea. I reached to pick it up, then stopped. Sometimes silence is the last form of resistance left. My coffee table was now a lavender-scented altar of candles and decor. The wedding photo of Margaret and me was gone, replaced by a sign that read, "Home Sweet Home." The scent of chemicals had replaced the scent of memory. I caught Vanessa in the kitchen, inspecting the fridge with the face of a crime scene investigator. "This milk expired yesterday," she said, holding it up like evidence in a trial I didn't know I was part of. "I still drink it with my coffee every morning," I said evenly. "That bitterness reminds me I'm alive." "Daniel, don't forget the almond milk," she called out, diagnosing my habits in a nurse's tone. Old people aren't afraid of losing their homes, I thought. They're afraid of losing their voice inside them. We're just making a few small updates. Vanessa smiled, thin as a razor. In the living room, Daniel spoke into his phone. Yeah, the upstairs is cleared. You can come for inspection on Wednesday. His eyes swept the walls, windows, and floors like a property assessor assigning value. I stepped up one stair, then stopped. A suitcase blocked the path. The moment stretched only the ticking clock, and birds outside filled the air. The silence of power shifting is the loudest sound of all. I've caught hundreds of people hiding things that weren't theirs, I recalled from my years as a contraband inspector. Now I'm watching my own son do the same. The only difference is, the merchandise is my life. I turned back to the kitchen just as Vanessa snatched the milk from my hand. Let me take care of that properly, she said. People don't need to steal when they already have the keys, I replied, setting the cup down. And a story they call concern. She froze for half a second, just long enough for me to know the blade had found the edge of silk. Down the hall, Jasmine stood near the framed photo, her eyes speaking more than her lips. Grandpa, let me help with the suitcases, she whispered. Don't let them just let me help. I nodded. Helping is also a form of taking a side. The doorbell rang. A parcel from Amazon sat on the doormat, addressed to Vanessa Lawson, my home address. I signed for it and placed the box on the table, a new stamp on old territory. Daniel returned, calm as a manager handling a meeting. You should see this as an opportunity to rest, not an invasion. You said a few weeks, I replied, meeting his gaze, but the scent of people who plan to stay it lingers. His smile thinned. I lifted Margaret's photo from a pile of magazines and set it back on the fireplace. Vanessa frowned slightly. That frame catches too much light. Things that belong to the departed don't move, I said quietly. Not without asking first. Just enough volume to hear, just enough to understand. My house was being rearranged by small adjustments. A tall white mug replacing my old cup, my medicine box organized by size instead of schedule. Sticky notes labeled "Optimize Layout" on framed photos. Each change was minor until nothing left in this place belonged to me except my name on the deed. I'll choose my battles, I told myself. No wasted bullets on cheap arguments. I need strategy. I opened the kitchen drawer, the one that always stuck when it rained, and pulled out a hardbound notebook. On the first page, I wrote one word: inventory. Things moved. Things replaced. Things they call temporary. And at the bottom I added one more line in bold: my voice. Because the safety that once lived here today, it packed its bags and left. I looked up at the grandfather clock. Its rhythm hadn't faltered. It wasn't keeping their time. It was keeping mine. And from this moment on, I began reclaiming my rights through silence, through paperwork, and through boundaries spoken softly but never withdrawn. I stepped out onto the porch to breathe in air that wasn't measured, divided, or shared. The pale autumn sunlight slid across the surface of Silverwood Lake like a dull knife, not sharp enough to cut, but sharp enough to sting the skin. The wind lifted the edge of the tin roof, rusty nails groaning softly. The half-closed window knocked against its frame, talk, as if the house itself was trying to warn me. The lake was calm, but inside me, waves had begun to rise. 2 geese drifted near the reeds, their necks curving like question marks. Then a stone thrown from somewhere unseen splashed down, scattering them apart. Peace had just been struck, and no one would admit who threw it. The disturbance inside my home crept through the floorboards, coiled around the railing, and seeped through the cracks of the door, spreading like kudzu, the vine that only needs one season to cover an entire lifetime. Helping family was never a problem. God knows I've done it for Daniel for years, covering his tuition when scholarships fell short, paying the deposit on his first house, even covering 6 months of mortgage payments when the market crashed. I never brought it up in our arguments. Kindness, after all, is not a loan meant to accrue interest. But this time was different. This wasn't a request. This was an assumption. And I learned long ago that assumptions are the first bricks in the wall others build around you until, when it's done, they call it love. Inside that wall is a prison built from kind words. I turned back inside. Jasmine was in the kitchen, pouring water with the quiet precision of someone who didn't want to make noise. Her eyes flicked around, checking whether anyone was listening. "Hi, Grandpa," she whispered. "You all right, sweetheart?" I asked, pausing. "How are you when silence has no place left in your own home?" She shrugged, a small movement that held 1,000 unspoken things. "Yes, Mom and Dad said it's temporary, but they've said that before. Jasmine, come here right now. Don't make me call you twice." Vanessa's voice sliced through the air from the living room, sharp as a referee's whistle. Jasmine looked at me apologetically before leaving. I stood there alone, surrounded by small changes that had already taken root. A new bottle of dish soap, a different kind of coffee filter, my special mug, the one Margaret bought for me, pushed to the back, hidden behind 4 identical white cups. The fridge light still glowed, but its familiar smell was gone, replaced by plastic containers labeled organic, as if someone had slapped a new label on my life without asking permission. That night, in the narrow living room that smelled faintly of storage, I lay awake listening to the murmurs above the steady rhythm of discussion and decision. The light from upstairs spilled down the wall in a sterile glow, the kind of light you find in an operating room, not a home. People don't bring 7 suitcases for a few weeks, I thought, staring at the ceiling. And they don't take over the master bedroom out of safety for someone who's climbed those stairs 48 years without falling once. Among the pile of mail by the door, one envelope stood upright, demanding attention. My fingers froze on the edge of the paper, cold, like metal and intent. Inside were a postal mail forwarding form, my name written in handwriting that wasn't mine, a glossy brochure from Briarwood Residence, a senior care facility near Old Mill Parkway, a coupon for stairlift installation, all bound neatly with a rubber band, packaged like a parcel ready to be shipped. Perhaps to ship me. I sat down. The calm of an investigator settled over me again, like an old coat that still fit. Years ago, I searched shipping containers for contraband. Now I sat here, hunting for lies inside the walls I built myself. Investigators don't shout, they document, they observe, they wait. I opened my notebook and began to write, in the format of an inspection report. Section A, 6 suitcases. Section B, 1 false pretext, temporary repairs. Section C, homeowner removed from the family record. Section D, evidence of planned relocation mail forwarding. Senior facility, stairlift. Upstairs, footsteps moved, drawers opened, and shut clack, clack, clack. The house breathed heavily, each wall creaking like old lungs under pressure. I touched the mug that had been pushed to the back, the only thing with a soul among all the sterile replicas, and placed it back in its proper spot. Small, yes, but it was a boundary. I don't shout, I reminded myself. I take inventory. And I began to count not in numbers, but in intuition. Breaths divided. Memories displaced. Decisions erased in silence. In this house, I was the only one without luggage, yet I was the one about to be moved out. They thought they were making plans. What they didn't know was that the moment I opened that envelope, I had already begun an investigation of my own. And I have never lost a single inspection in my life. This time, the contraband was my freedom. Wood groaned. Metal clinked. A chair scraped rhythmically across the floor like a machine built to measure intrusion. I woke to that pattern of occupation, a quiet assembly line powered by self-appointed goodwill. Stepping out of the small guest room that had become my quarters, I saw the living room had been rearranged. The sofa now faced a different angle toward Silverwood Lake, as if after 48 years my old view suddenly needed optimization. The light through the window turned pale and sterile, the light of an operating room, not a home. Vanessa stood at the choke point of the house, the hallway, where every passage in or out passed under her command. In her hands was a basket of new scented candles. Every simple white candle Margaret once loved had been replaced by elaborate vanilla cinnamon towers. The air was thick with perfume, coating the scent of old pine and lake water like a new varnish over memory. Each candle she set down felt like a flag planted on conquered ground. When she saw me watching, she gave a bright, practiced smile. "Just adding a little life to the house, Dad," she said, her bureaucratic tone wrapped in velvet. "To clear out the old smell." This house already had life," I replied, with Midwestern politeness, long before synthetic fragrance came in. I walked straight to the fireplace and saw the void. The photo of Margaret and me the day we finished rebuilding the porch railing, sweaty and laughing, was gone. In its place sat a white ceramic knot, twisted halfway and abandoned. The photo had been shoved onto the piano bench, buried beneath glossy home decor magazines. "Less clutter," Vanessa said when she caught my glance. "It creates a cleaner aesthetic." Aesthetic. I rolled the word on my tongue like a foreign phrase forced into use. Without another speech, I simply moved the photo back to its rightful spot. Morning light immediately caught Margaret's smile again, just as it used to my small act of restoring sovereignty. At 10 o'clock, a white Sprinter van pulled into the drive. 3 sharp knocks, the kind from someone who knows their name is on the schedule. I opened the door before the third knock landed. "I'm here for the measurements," said a young man in his 20s, polo shirt, pressed khakis, clipboard in hand. The company logo gleamed. In the authorized by box I read, "Vanessa Lawson." "Measurements for what?" I asked flatly. "The kitchen, sir." Mrs. Lawson scheduled a free consultation planning to replace the cabinets. I looked toward the kitchen I'd shared with Margaret for decades, cabinets nicked by Thanksgiving turkey trays, a small chip from the night her sister visited. The green wax stain Jasmine left when she was 3, and Margaret said, "Leave it, it's part of us." Every mark was a story. "Not today," I said quietly but firmly. "And on other days only when I make the appointment." The young man exhaled, relieved but a little guilty about his quota. "Can I at least leave a brochure, sir?" "Go on," I said politely. Daniel appeared stepping out of what used to be my office, a room that had changed owners without changing locks. He patted the worker's shoulder with forced camaraderie. "Sorry, buddy, my dad's a bit old school. We'll call you back." The door closed. Daniel leaned his forehead against the wood, sighing like a martyr burdened by virtue. Turning back, he wore a negotiator's smile. "Dad, we talked about updating a few small things, keeping it modern. Don't you want this house to last?" "It's already lasted," I said. "Longer than most marriages." His smile tightened. "Vanessa just booked a free consultation." "Everything starts with free," I said, "including the habit of signing things on someone else's behalf." He looked down at the tiled floor, Margaret's choice, which, as always, had been right. When he looked up again, his eyes gleamed like a man about to close a deal. "You're not the only one who loves this house." "I've noticed," I said. He hesitated, searching his mental sales catalog for another pitch. "We just want to make the house ready for you." "For me?" I raised an eyebrow. "All I need is my bed where it belongs, my photo where it was, and my coffee without being managed like a child with a dairy allergy. It's just structure, Dad. Structure keeps everyone stable." "Keep that structure," I replied coldly, "for those who asked for it." Late afternoon, I found Vanessa in the hallway, blue painter's tape in her hand. She was sticking small squares beside the family photos, inventory labels pasted over memory. "What are you doing?" I asked, though the answer was already clear. "Tagging things for rearranging. We need visual consistency." "Visual consistency," I repeated, tasting the bitterness of corporate language. "Should the family be made consistent too?" She pressed another square beside my favorite picture, Margaret in a straw hat, showing Jasmine how to hold a frog gently without hurting it, 3 generations of tenderness in one frame. "We'll keep the pretty ones," she said, fingers already touching the frame. "This one's a bit blurry." My hand rose instinctively, as if something inside me had pulled a cord. "Leave it." She froze, looking at me as though I'd grabbed her wrist. "We're not throwing it away." She softened her tone. "Just curating." "Curation," I said evenly, "is what museums do with other people's lives. This one's mine." Daniel's shadow stretched down the stairs. He came quickly, his voice coated in mediation. "Everything all right here?" That wasn't a question, it was a warning wrapped in politeness. "Dad's just feeling emotional about the hallway," Vanessa said, aligning herself beside him. Daniel gave his client negotiation smile. "We'll revisit the photo wall later." He kissed her lightly on the head. She slid the tape roll into her pocket and withdrew slowly, carefully. A tactical retreat, not surrender. That evening, I ate early just to have one act left that didn't require negotiation. Scrambled eggs and burnt toast. Distraction had done the cooking. Margaret used to pop the bread up at the first golden moment that was instinct, refined by years. Sitting alone at the kitchen table, now slowly turning into their command center, I thought about how fast a man can become a guest in his own home. Vanessa's hollow laughter floated in from the living room, hitting the exact pitch of interior design chatter, pretty but empty. I stepped out to the porch. The air out here still remembered who I was. The lake turned gray-green, indifferent to human dramas. I laid my hand on the railing. Margaret and I had rebuilt ourselves and made my decision. They thought the house was theirs because I was quiet, because I'd moved downstairs, because I'd turned a contractor away without making a scene. They were wrong. They mistook silence for surrender, patience for weakness. I spent 30 years in customs, trained to spot contraband hidden behind legitimate goods. I knew how to observe, to wait, to record while pretending not to notice. If they called this structure, I would show them what real structure looked like. Records, parcel numbers, title deeds, red seals. Tomorrow, I'd start making calls, the kind made in silence, to people who understand that ownership isn't a matter of discussion. You either have it, or you don't. I scrolled through my phone to a name I hadn't dialed in 3 years. Mr. Dunbar, Harbor Office. Me, need to talk. You still open? The reply came in under a minute. Mr. Dunbar, for you always. Tomorrow morning. Me, 10 o'clock. Bring the old ledger. I put the phone away. Inside, Vanessa laughed again. I smiled too, a smile that didn't reach my eyes, but was full of plans. Let them rearrange the sofa, light their candles, call the contractors, tape the walls, and switch my milk to almond. Every unauthorized act was a piece of evidence I quietly collected. The game had already begun. They just didn't know I'd been playing it since before they were born. The cork popped softly from the bottle's neck like a starting signal. Glasses clinked. The grandfather clock struck its rhythm. Every time a sensitive topic was about to surface, Daniel's phone went ding, as if logging each line into an invisible transcript. Daniel sat in the armchair that had molded perfectly to my back for over 30 years. It yielded easily to him, while I suddenly felt out of place in my own home. Vanessa emerged from the kitchen holding an opened bottle of wine, the decision already uncorked before I could say no. She swirled the glass slowly, the spiral of the liquid mirroring the spiral of my sinking. "You know, Dad," Daniel said casually, glancing up from his phone, "if we turn the sofa to face the lake, the space will feel more open, less heavy, better resale value." The words resale value hit the room like a bird slamming into glass, no shatter, just death. My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. Vanessa tilted her head toward her husband, her smile cracking like cheap porcelain. "Don't mind him. That's just the real estate brain talking. Resale optics, photo angles, lighting, you understand." I did understand. People don't stage a home unless they're planning to sell it. I set the cup down, rose without a word, and stepped onto the porch. The cold air struck my face like a subpoena demanding truth. I gripped the railing, watching the last sliver of sunlight fade across Silverwood Lake. I wasn't blind. I had just hoped I was wrong about the sun I once taught to fish from this very dock. The screen door creaked like a pen clicking, ready to record. "Grandpa." Jasmine stood in the doorway, arms crossed against the chill, caught between the sterile kitchen light and the darkness outside. "Anytime," I said, motioning to the chair beside me. She sat on its edge, the posture of someone about to confess and ready to flee. "I didn't snoop, I swear," she said, eyes on her hands, fingers pinching the knit seam of her sweater until it left a white mark. "But last night, I overheard them, and even if I misheard, I'd rather you knew. She swallowed hard. Mom already paid the deposit. She even bragged about doubling it. Deposit where? I asked, feeling a cold band tighten across my chest. Willowgate Senior Living in Maple Glen, near Old Mill Parkway. Mom likes that it's clean and close to the hospital. Dad likes that it has a shuttle and social programs, so he doesn't have to feel guilty visiting you. Her voice faltered. She used the exact phrase from the contract, assisted living, complete solution. She even made the air quotes. And Harbor Crest. Jasmine lowered her voice. They're selling Helen and Robert Ward's condo. Mom wants them moved in before Thanksgiving. She said it's the perfect timing. Perfect timing, a pill with no water. This morning I asked, casually, are we moving? Grandpa seems fine. Dad said it's for your safety, that you need structure and supervision, and that they can't live here forever. She bit her lip. Then he told me not to mention it in case it made you decline. Her eyes rolled the way Margaret's once did, and my chest ached. I do not consent, I said flatly, pressing the anger back behind my ribs. She exhaled sharply, the breath of someone who'd been holding it too long. There's more. Monday, 10:30, Mom booked you an appointment at a geriatric care assessment clinic. It's on your phone calendar, but you didn't add it. I looked it up, reviews are mixed. If a patient shows up without a family advocate, their records can just disappear. In my head, the investigator's voice reawakened. Hypothesis A. Preparing the path for the wards. Evidence. Deposit made. Facility tour. 5 or 6 options. Willowgate selected. Fake medical appointment. Resale discussion. Deadline. Thanksgiving, when everyone's too busy eating to object. They'd made the rookie mistake of the overconfident, moving too fast, leaving paper trails everywhere, mail forwarding, clinic appointments, deposits under Daniel's name. Every piece traceable. Grandpa, are you okay? Jasmine whispered. I'm fine, I said, squeezing her hand. You just handed me a scalpel. Information cuts precisely without spilling unnecessary blood. What will you do? I'll do what I was trained to do, observe, record, wait for the right moment, and move my pieces where they won't see them coming. I'll write everything down, she nodded. Dates, times, names on paper, not the phone. Good, I smiled. The cloud can't subpoena paper. We went back inside. From the kitchen came Daniel and Vanessa's muffled voices, low, hurried, the tone of people who've just said too much and are measuring the damage. When they saw us, they fell silent, wearing normalcy like a mask. All good outside? Vanessa asked, a little too brightly. Fine, I said. I was teaching my granddaughter about constellations. A small lie, meant to soothe, perfect for the kindly old man they planned to load onto the Willowgate shuttle. Back in my room, I opened my notes and began drafting a checklist, something to delete later. But writing makes things real. Call Mr. Dunbar. 10 o'clock. Confirm owner of record and deed status. Contact registry office divided by title bureau. Review all account beneficiaries. Find real estate attorney. Book my own medical appointment on my terms. Document every unauthorized action. Photos. Blue tape. Free consultations. Photograph the mail forwarding form. Log their calendar entries. Timestamp everything. Trace ownership of Willowgate, follow the money. Then I added one more line, underlined twice. Family manifesto diverso da genuine goods. I closed the notes. Above me, footsteps. Vanessa's quick, precise. Daniel's slow, heavy. They were settling in as if this were their home. Let them settle. Let them prepare the structure. Let them talk about resale over the wine they brought into my house. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., I begin the chain of procedures. Item 1. Deed. Item 2. Power of attorney. Item 3. Registration seal. They think I retired. I merely changed shifts. The shipment has arrived, and I'll inspect it by the book. Before dawn, the sky looked like carbon paper, every sound pressed deeper than usual. The wooden floor creaked in low notes. I stepped only where the house allowed silence. I, Henry Lawson, followed the shadows upstairs and stopped at the door that used to be my bedroom. Inside, Daniel's breathing was heavy, the sleep of a man at peace with his own control. Vanessa's breath came in restless fragments, like someone who couldn't let go even in dreams. I turned toward the storage room where Margaret once kept the things that mattered most and opened the cabinet. The second drawer stuck, like a memory hitting a security latch. Push at the right angle, and it released. Beneath a stack of old cards and a shoebox of vacation photos was a flat manila envelope, creased in the middle. It wasn't heavy because of the paper. It was heavy because of the signatures. I carried it down to the kitchen and spread the documents under the cold white light of the range hood, bright enough to read fine print, unforgiving enough to exclude emotion. Property deed, filed 1992, owner, Henry Lawson, no lien, no life estate, no co-ownership. Last will and testament, updated after Margaret's passing, leaving everything to Daniel, which explained their push for another signature. Life insurance policy, less than the promise, but enough to cover a funeral and half a year of breathing room. Marriage certificate, the only document that could still summon Margaret's laughter, just 2 names side by side. I photographed each page and sent them to my independent email separate from the so-called family cloud Vanessa always suggested for convenience. The deed was the key. One signature of mine could block every script that excluded me. A floorboard creaked upstairs, someone headed to the bathroom. I gathered the papers and moved them to the safe storage, the bottom of the Christmas bin with a false panel I'd built myself. The second copy went inside the 1986 community cookbook, spiral-bound, the one only someone who truly remembered Margaret would ever touch. The best hiding places are always the boring ones. 8:15. Vanessa came down. I sat there like an old man up too early, hot coffee, open newspaper. "Good morning, Henry," she said, smiling too brightly. She opened a cabinet and rearranged my pillboxes by size, not by the schedule I'd followed for 10 years. "I've organized them for you, it's easier to follow." "Easier for whom?" I asked gently. "Probably both," she said, meaning neither. 20 minutes later, Daniel came down, phone in hand, poured himself coffee without looking up, muttered a "morning," and slipped into my old office. 11:25. A black sedan pulled up the drive. The man who stepped out was in his 50s, wearing a suit that cost more than my first car, carrying a leather briefcase smoother than the table they wanted me to sign on. Vanessa leaned in. "This is Evan Marshall." Daniel asked him to bring a few papers, standard stuff to make things easier. "Easier for whom?" I repeated, but she'd already opened the door. Evan's handshake was firm, the kind taught in seminars. Confidence plus control. He spread the glossy documents across my kitchen table. "This is a general durable power of attorney," he began. "Here's the healthcare proxy, and a simple affidavit allowing your son to act on your behalf for routine household and financial decisions." I let my eyes rest on the word durable for a beat. The only durability I needed was in boundaries. Daniel appeared right on cue, too perfectly timed to be coincidence. "Just standard stuff, Dad. Everyone does it. Makes it easier for us to handle things if you're busy or in an emergency." "Busy with what?" I asked. "Emergency, meaning what exactly?" Evan's tone was smooth. "It lets your agent sign documents, speak to doctors, handle the bank if necessary. Makes everything legal and tidy." "Transfer of authority is a polite word for removal," I said, without touching the papers. "Power of attorney is a double-edged knife. Once you hand it over, you don't always get it back." Daniel's face tightened. "Dad, we're trying to make things simpler." "Standard means something done when asked," I replied, my tone cold as frost. "I haven't asked." Evan read the room quickly. He set down his card. "Take your time, Mr. Lawson. When you're ready, we can arrange a private consultation." They left. Daniel lingered in the doorway, staring at me like a clause about to ruin his deal. "What's the issue, Dad? We're helping you." "Helping means doing something with someone," I said slowly. "Not to them. If you want to help, start with the question, what do you need? Not sign here." "You're being difficult," Vanessa called from the kitchen. "I'm being lucid," I corrected. They went out again. I called Dr. Maria Santos's clinic, the one where Vanessa had secretly booked me for Wednesday at 10:20. "This is Henry Lawson," I said. "There's an appointment someone made for me without my consent. Move it to next Tuesday at 10 o'clock. And add this note. Patient is sole decision-maker for scheduling and disclosure. Any other requests must go directly through me. Noted, the receptionist said, with the calm voice of someone used to family dramas. I hung up. A brick of ownership had just been laid. Each small boundary I rebuilt became a tooth in the gear that would soon jam their machine. That afternoon, the house was empty. I went to the hook by the back door. The spare keys had hung there since before Daniel learned to drive. I replaced them with an identical set, marked by a small filed notch, the private code Margaret and I had agreed on years ago. The originals went into my pocket, and then somewhere they'd never think to look. The side door, garage, and basement returned to homeowner mode. A small victory, but a victory nonetheless. That evening, I wrote by hand, no phone notes. Paper doesn't accidentally sync to the family cloud. To-do list. Call Mr. Dunbar, 10 o'clock. Confirm owner of record and deed status. Contact the registry divided by title office. Review account beneficiaries. Find a real estate attorney. Schedule my own medical appointment under my conditions. Document all unauthorized actions, photos, blue tape, free contractors. Photograph mail forwarding form. Log their calendar edits. Timestamp everything. Trace who owns or profits from Willowgate Senior Living. Follow the money. At the top of the page, I wrote in bold letters, "The deed has only my name." I set the pen down. The game wasn't over. They'd just shown me their hidden card. And me? I was about to put the law on the table. The fireplace glowed red in one corner. The rest of the room was cold as a boardroom. The file clip snapped open pop, and the grandfather clock struck its steady beat. They called this a family meeting. A meeting is a discussion. This was a polite eviction notice wrapped in civility. Daniel stood by the fireplace, posture rehearsed like a man about to pitch a deck he'd memorized. Vanessa sat on the sofa, a file resting on her knees, her smile tight, the kind worn by someone who still believes the script is on track. I, Henry Lawson, sat in the one armchair they hadn't yet claimed, my hands on the armrests, face still as water. "Dad," Daniel began, tone forced cheerful, "the timeline's set. All you need to do now is adjust." "Adjust to what, exactly?" I asked, though Jasmine had already warned me earlier that afternoon. "For your move," Vanessa said smoothly, flipping open the file like an executive. "Willowgate Senior Living just offered a rare priority spot. They've fast-tracked our application, a big favor to the family." "How generous," I said evenly. "Friday, 9:10 a.m., Daniel added bluntly, eyes fixed on mine, gauging my reaction. Quick and painless, like ripping off a bandage, you know? After the word Friday, only the ticking clock remained, slicing the room into thin surgical layers. 2 days. They'd scheduled the dismantling of my life faster than most people book a dental cleaning. "Efficient," I said neutrally. "We've already packed what you'll need," Vanessa said, sliding a glossy folder across the table. 2 suitcases, 1 bag of nice clothes, toiletries. The Willowgate suite is fully furnished, so no need to bring much. The rest we've packed, labeled, and stored in the garage. "Stored," I repeated, tasting the word. "In my garage?" "Just temporarily," Daniel jumped in quickly. "To prevent loss or damage, this is the most efficient way." Vanessa handed me a brochure. Elderly residents smiling, playing cards, strolling through gardens too perfect to be real. Orientations at 10:30 Friday morning, followed by a welcome brunch. Very warm, very friendly. You'll make friends in no time. "Brunch?" I asked. "What time?" 11, she said, as if it were carved in stone. Daniel pulled out another stack. "Your room's on the 2nd floor, near the elevator. Window faces the courtyard, quiet. The staff-to-resident ratio exceeds state standards." "Exceeds in every way?" I murmured, just sharp enough. "Exceeds in every way," Vanessa replied, ignoring the edge in my tone. On the table lay the floor plan, care level chart, meal schedule, visitor and noise policies, and a list of permitted personal items. My entire life, reduced to bullet points. "May I see the list of items you packed for me?" I asked. Vanessa's face lit up, thinking I was cooperating. She handed over a detailed inventory that would have made a customs officer proud. I read slowly, committing to memory what they said was needed and what was not. Then I stood, walked to Margaret's old writing desk, picked up a pen and a blank sheet, and returned to the table. "I'll need 2 signatures here," I said. Daniel frowned. "Sign what?" I wrote the title and set the pen down like a paper knife, cutting through the fog of care. Inventory receipt for personal property subject. Henry Lawson, temporary storage location. Garage. If you're taking my belongings, you'll sign acknowledging exactly what you took and where it's stored. Chain of custody must be clear. "Dad, that's not necessary," Daniel said, his tone faltering. "It's very necessary," I replied calmly. 30 years at the port taught me when the paperwork's clear, there's no argument later. You want to help? Sign for what you're doing. Vanessa's expression tightened. She knew I was creating a legal record. Refusing to sign would make their concern look suspicious. "Fine," she said sharply. She signed in large, looping strokes that took up more space than needed. Daniel signed beneath short, rushed. I took out my phone and snapped a photo. "Good. You keep the original. I'll keep the copy." "What copy?" Vanessa asked. "The photo I just took," I said, tapping send. A soft ping. The evidence left the room. Jasmine appeared halfway in the doorway, eyes meeting mine, a silent witness. Daniel and Vanessa exchanged a look, recalibrating their strategy in real time. "Anything else?" I asked, sounding perfectly cooperative. "That's probably it," Daniel said slowly. 7:30 Friday morning. I'll drive. Vanessa will follow in the second car with the rest of the boxes. "Sounds good," I said, and I meant it, just not in the way they thought. Their plan had a timestamp now, and I had my first piece of evidence. From this moment on, every entry in their calendar would become a timestamp in my case file. The house was so silent I could hear the ticking second hand, each beat a countdown to Friday. The blue glow from my phone screen lit my face, the light of a man making plans in the shadows of his own home. I scrolled through my contacts and stopped at a name I hadn't called in 3 years. Mr. Dunbar, the dockmaster, the man who had kept my mooring spot ever since Margaret fell ill. I texted, "Dunbar, I need to renew my berth. Can we talk in the morning?" His reply came almost instantly. "Thought you'd forgotten me. 8 o'clock sharp. Bring coffee. I've got something you'll want to hear about someone who tried to rent your old berth last week." "Perfect. See you at 10. I put the phone down and took out the envelope I'd hidden since yesterday, Willowgate Senior Living, addressed to Daniel Lawson, sent to my home. The paper still smelled of fresh ink, the scent of decisions made on behalf of others. I opened it carefully, preserving the seal. Inside was a receipt. Deposit received, $2,200. Account holder, Daniel Lawson. Co-signer, Vanessa Lawson. Note, reservation for Henry Lawson, room 2, November 18th. My name appeared only once in the notes section, after the phrase, "subject to transfer." No signature, no consent. They were the clients. I was the cargo. I photographed every angle: the front, the reflection, the transaction number, collecting evidence like a crime scene investigator. The photos went into a folder named Documents. The original went into the same hidden file as the deed and my legal capacity papers, the physical dossier that would one day save me. A soft knock. "Come in." Jasmine slipped inside and closed the door. "Grandpa, are you really going to go along with them?" "I plan to do exactly what they expect." I paused long enough for the air to catch. "Just not in the way they expect. Saturday morning, I'll get in the car and let them drive me to Willowgate." Her face fell. "But when I arrive," I continued, "I'll meet an old friend, Marcus Bell. We work together in customs. He's been at Willowgate 10 months. He knows the layout, the shifts, the names of the real gatekeepers. Marcus will show me how that place runs without your parents ever knowing." A spark of understanding flickered in Jasmine's eyes. Her voice trembled, but her gaze didn't. "You're not giving up." "I never give up," I said. "I'm conducting surveillance. An investigator doesn't retire, he just changes the type of cargo he inspects, from containers to people." "What do you want me to do?" "Keep your ears open, your eyes sharper. Anything you hear about Willowgate, this house, or there after Grandpa leaves plans, report directly to me. No texts, no calls. Paper only. The cloud can't be subpoenaed for paper. I can do that. And if, over the weekend, they try to make you witness a signature or file a transfer, remember this: everything you see is intentional. It might look like I'm cooperating. I'm actually buying time. Time for what? To place my pieces. I taught Daniel to play chess when he was 10. He's a good strategist, but he's forgotten one rule. What rule? Never assume your opponent doesn't know the game better than you do. Jasmine smiled faintly, the first seed of steel showing through. Then she slipped out as quietly as she came. I sat on the edge of the single bed, the white, sterile kind of room designed for those about to be evaluated for capacity. I turned my phone face down, its camera away from me. They thought I was bad with technology. I was. But I knew what surveillance smelled like. I opened Willowgate's floor plan on the screen. 4 gates, 2 camera clusters, 1 unguarded delivery access, an exit for anyone who refused to stay. The old wooden chessboard was still at home, 1 rook still bearing the crack Margaret once glued. Tomorrow, I'd move the game to Willowgate, same board, different battleground. Friday morning, they'd drive me there in their car. They thought once the gate closed, I'd be trapped. They were wrong. Their plan would be the thing imprisoned. The old gatekeeper was returning to the scene, not to inspect cargo, but to catch thieves. The investigation would begin with one simple question: who truly profits when an old man signs his home away? I would find out, and then I would act. The day they thought they were watching me would be the day I began watching them. Friday morning was thick as cooled ash, no warmth, no light, only the heavy stillness of something inevitable that everyone pretended not to see. Gray light slipped through the curtains, coating the room in the color of dust. Every object stood in silence, as if aware that today its owner was being moved elsewhere. At 8:20, Daniel Lawson knocked on the door earlier than scheduled. "Dad, are you ready?" The car came a bit early, better than waiting around. "I'm ready," I said, like a man summoned on time. My 2 suitcases were already gone, the moment of departure no longer mine to decide. The scrape of wheels on hardwood sounded dry, each rotation like a slow-turning shackle. The drive to Willowgate Senior Living took 20 minutes, passing through roads I'd known for 40 years. The elementary school where Daniel learned his first letters, the grocery store where Margaret stopped every Thursday afternoon, and the park where we once picnicked back when the word family meant something else. Vanessa followed behind in her car, the trunk filled with cardboard boxes containing my entire life, now relabeled as inventory items. Jasmine sat in the back seat, her eyes quiet but knowing, watching me through the rearview mirror. Ethan wore headphones, pretending to sleep, escaping reality through tuneless sound. The Willowgate complex rose behind a row of maple trees. 3 beige brick stories with white trim and wide glass windows reflecting the sky like a hospital mirror. Everything was spotless, so clean it felt sterile. The air carried the scent of disinfectant, oatmeal porridge, and something artificially sweet, the kind of fragrance used to hide what people don't want to admit. "We're here, Dad," Daniel said brightly. "What do you think?" "It's a place," I replied flatly. Inside the lobby, fresh flowers sat in identical vases, armchairs were arranged in neat conversation clusters that no one used, and a piano gleamed so perfectly it seemed untouched, its keys familiar only to the cleaning staff. A woman in a navy suit approached, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Lawson? I'm Karen, the admissions coordinator here at Willowgate. Welcome to our community." I gave her a faint smile. "Community, huh? Let's hope this isn't the last chapter." I shook her hand firmly enough to say I'm still here. "We'll begin your intake process," Karen said pleasantly. "After that, Mrs. Caldwell, RN, will conduct your initial health assessment. Just a few standard questions, then we'll get you settled in your room before the 10 o'clock brunch." Daniel hovered beside me like he was afraid I'd bolt. Vanessa entered behind him with Jasmine and Ethan, carrying fragments of my life dismantled into labeled boxes. Down the hall, a nurse in a navy uniform approached, name tag gleaming, Mrs. Caldwell, RN. Her eyes were calm, The look of someone who's seen too much and learned not to judge. "Mr. Lawson, I'm Mrs. Caldwell," she said gently. "I'll be conducting your initial assessment, mostly just a chat about your health and daily routine. It's private, if that's all right with you." Her eyes flicked to the family, standing clustered behind me. Vanessa stepped forward immediately. "I think I should stay, in case my father-in-law gets disoriented." Mrs. Caldwell's smile didn't change, but her tone turned to polished steel. "That's exactly why we need privacy. Those who are truly lucid answer more freely when they're not being observed. Willowgate requires complete confidentiality for all first evaluations. Please wait in the lobby, Mrs. Lawson." I caught Jasmine's gaze. There was a subtle exhale of relief in her eyes. I nodded slightly to thank Mrs. Caldwell. A door opened, not wide, but just enough to let real air in. Karen placed a folder on the desk. Room layout, activity schedule, meal times, scope of care, visitation policy, all pretending this place wasn't what it was. Daniel leaned close and whispered, "Your room's on the second floor, near the elevator, facing the courtyard. Staff ratio exceeds state standards." "Exceeds on paper," I murmured back, "not in respect." Mrs. Caldwell motioned me toward the hallway. The door to the evaluation room closed behind us, soundproof, absolute. I took a deep breath. They thought this was the beginning of supervision, but I knew this was the first deposition of the investigation I had started myself. I wasn't afraid of the questions. I was just waiting for the right person to start telling the truth. The evaluation room was small and flooded with white light, the kind that's never friendly, designed to expose everything, even the fading memories of the old man sitting beneath it. In the corner, a black camera blinked red. I wondered if it was there for safety or to see if I was obedient enough to stay. The sound of a pen gliding across a clipboard echoed with the precision of a courtroom clock. Mrs. Caldwell, RN, closed the door, sat across from me, and opened her tablet, though her eyes never left mine. "All right, Mr. Lawson," she said gently. "Just a few standard questions. There are no right or wrong answers. I just need to assess your level of awareness. What day is it today?" "Saturday, December 25th, 2022, I replied, then added calmly, "If you'd like to test my memory further, I can read you the serial number on the $20 bill in my wallet." "Current president?" I answered correctly. "Can you draw a clock showing 11:18? I drew the circle, placed the numbers, sketched the hands, crooked but precise. She nodded and made a note. "Your medications?" "I sort them myself, 7 boxes per week. Morning blood pressure pills, vitamin D, and a low-dose aspirin at night. I don't forget days. I just find it strange that lately memory is being used as a reason to take people's rights away." "Do you still cook for yourself?" "I did," I said, "until someone decided my kitchen was no longer mine." Her pen paused. "Would you clarify that?" I answered like a deposition. "They arrived Monday. 6 suitcases. A short explanation, and a long plan I was never asked about. They moved me out of my own bedroom, took over the second floor, changed the locks in silence, and today they brought me here to Willowgate without a single question." Mrs. Caldwell set the tablet down. Her tone shifted, slow, deliberate, judicial. "Has anyone forced you to come to this facility?" "Force?" I smiled faintly. "At this age, no one needs to force you. They just need to care the right way." Then, clearly, "I'm here because Daniel made the reservation," Vanessa co-signed, "and they drove me. I'm cooperating because at 83, I know which battles to pick, but no, this was not my choice." "Do you believe you're capable of making your own housing decisions?" "I do. I've managed a home for 48 years, 4 decades in customs enforcement. I cook, I clean, I take my medications, I drive, and I know what day it is. The only thing I can't seem to do is stop my son from deciding my life without asking." She wrote for a long moment, then looked up, each word measured like a reversal of judgment. "Mr. Lawson, your memory, cognition, and capacity for self-care are fully intact. You are oriented to time, place, and person. You understand the situation and demonstrate sound judgment. I'll record that you are independent in daily activities and show no impairment warranting the loss of decision-making authority. I nodded. Thank you. That doesn't mean Willowgate can't support you if you choose, she added. But it does mean you're here voluntarily, not as someone under guardianship. Do you understand the distinction? I do, I said quietly. And I appreciate your clarity. Out in the lobby, my family waited anxious, impatient. Everything's fine, Mrs. Caldwell said. Mr. Lawson is alert and independent. I'll forward my notes to the physician and administration. Daniel blinked rapidly, the reflex of a man hearing the wrong outcome. Vanessa smiled, but her fingers whitened on her purse strap. That's wonderful. Let's go get you settled, she said with a smile that never reached her eyes. I looked at my son with the calm of someone who had just won back his freedom lawfully, silently. The second floor, near the elevator room, looked like a hotel pretending to be a home. They unpacked, folded, and stored my things neatly, like guests tidying up for a stranger. The welcome brunch followed watery coffee and small talk forced into polite shapes. When I finally had a moment alone, I stepped into the courtyard. Benches, a fountain, manicured hedges, every blade of grass too perfect to be real. Only the cold wind felt honest, whispering that freedom always comes with a price. You got here earlier than I expected for a man supposedly in need of special care. I turned. A tall, lean black man stood there in a cardigan, smiling a smile I'd know anywhere. Marcus Bell, my former colleague, 15 years together in customs. I thought you were out of the game, I said, laughing. So did I, he replied, eyes glinting, until I realized the game was still being played, only this time I'm the cargo. We walked along the fountain's edge. He told me about his fall down the stairs, the broken hip, the hospital stay, and his daughter calling him a liability. That's how he ended up here. I told him about Daniel, how he said the stairs were dangerous after 35 years of me never falling. 2 weeks after they moved in, they moved me out. Marcus's gaze slowed seasoned eyes that had seen too many children care by confiscating homes. Let me guess, he said. They've got plans for that house, and you're not in them. Confirmed, I said. The Wards are selling their condo at Harbor Crest. Daniel and Vanessa want to move in before Thanksgiving. So you need to be gone. Classic. He smirked. Did you sign anything? Power of attorney? Medical proxy? I refused. They brought a lawyer. I told him my bank would review it first. Marcus chuckled, half admiration, half disbelief. Still sharp as ever. The deed still in your name? Only mine. No debt. No co-owner. His grin widened. Then sell it. What? I blinked. Sell it? Sell it, he repeated. Right under their noses. They want to take the house from you. Take it from them first. Sell to a cash buyer fast, quiet, off the books. Use the money to live where you choose, not where they choose. The thought hit me like cold air through an open door. Part of me resisted. The rational part saw it clearly. The only move that ends the game. I'm in Willowgate. How do I sell without them knowing? Marcus lifted his phone. I know someone. Very discreet. Luis Ortega, my nephew. Handles off-market properties for sensitive cases. No listings, no leaks. You'll need a copy of your deed, owner verification, and a quick notarization with Rebecca Shaw. She's trustworthy. Cash deal. Single wire transfer. No email details. Think of it as running an undercover operation. He turned his screen toward me. Luis Ortega Morrison Realty Group. Luis works fast and clean, Marcus said. But remember, no power of attorney nonsense. Every signature must be yours. I nodded slowly. The old instincts stirred. The opening whistle had just blown. For the first time in years, I was no longer the target in someone else's game. I was the one setting the trap. They wanted to monitor me? Perfect. From within their watchful system, I'd sell the house quietly, legally, completely. And by the time they realized, the deed would already bear a new name. At that point, they couldn't stop it, only scramble to undo a lawful transaction that was already done. As for me, I'd finally struck first. The courtyard was empty. Late sunlight filtered through frosted glass, and the cold wind carried the faint scent of disinfectant. They called this place a facility for stability. To me, it was just a temporary landing pad for an operation. Private sale. No MLS. No sign. Showings in daylight. Cash buyer. 30 days. Marcus Bell spoke crisply, his eyes alight with calculation. And here's the best part. The ADU clause. You include it directly in the contract. The buyer agrees to build you an accessory dwelling unit, an ADU, on the same lot, according to the attached drawing, Exhibit A. Then they sign a life lease. You sell the main house but live on the land, in the new home they pay to build. I doubt anyone would agree to that, I said warily. You'd be surprised, Marcus shrugged. Some rich folks love the idea of owning lakefront property and a story to tell. We helped an old man keep his dignity. Luis knows people like that. He'll find one. The gears in my head screeched into motion: procedure, risk, and just enough audacity to finish the game. They had arranged for me to disappear from the map. Fine. I'd agree to vanish, but I'd make the house disappear from their hands first. You think this could really work? Marcus met my eyes. What do you have to lose? Miss your timing, and you lose everything your son files. The house is locked up, and Willowgate becomes permanent. But if you strike first, sell before Thanksgiving, your son will come home for turkey and realize he's standing in a house that no longer belongs to his father. In my mind, I saw Daniel's phrase resale value, Vanessa's blue tape stuck over Margaret's photo, the doctor's appointment they scheduled without me, the deposit receipt that never carried my name. Introduce me to Luis, I said. Marcus grinned the grin of a man who'd just cracked open a mislabeled container. He tapped his phone, put it on speaker. Luis, it's Uncle Marcus. I've got a lakefront off-market deal, unusual terms, but airtight. You free today? Always for you, Uncle. Where and when? Courtyard at Willowgate. 1 hour. Bring paperwork. For the first time in 2 weeks, I felt something I hadn't. Not hope. Control. I wasn't the piece being moved anymore. I was the one moving the pieces. Why are you helping me, Marcus? We haven't spoken in 3 years. 40 years ago, he said slowly. You caught that shipment of ivory hidden in furniture containers, the one that should have been my inspection. You could have taken all the credit, but you added my name to the report. We both win. I never forgot that. And now, seeing an old partner being smuggled out of his own life, I'm just helping you catch the smugglers. That's what partners do. Right on time, a man in his mid-30s entered. Jeans, blazer, leather satchel, and the crisp movements of someone who lived on signatures. Luis Ortega, he said, shaking my hand firmly. My uncle says you've got a house to sell and a family that needs a surprise. Tell me everything. There, in Willowgate's courtyard, while my family thought I was settling in, I laid it out like a field report. Deed. My name only. Forced relocation. Their plan, which they believed I didn't know. Objective. Sell the house but stay through ADU plus life lease, reclaiming my freedom 1 square foot at a time. Luis took notes fast, asked concise questions, his eyes sharp with instinct. When I finished, he nodded. It's doable, but we move quickly. Tuesday, private photos. Wednesday, Thursday, silent showings. Friday, best and final offers. Choose a cash buyer. Open escrow immediately. Close in 40 days. Once we start, there's no pause. Are you sure? I thought of the armchair no longer mine, the bedroom I was evicted from, the photos curated, the medical appointments made without consent, the deposit receipt missing my name. I'm sure. Then let's begin. Luis opened his case. You'll sign an exclusive right to sell pocket listing. Special terms. Buyer must construct the ADU per Exhibit A within 100 days. Life lease is non-transferable, binding even after property changes hands. Temporary housing for 100 days, paid per diem by buyer. Earnest money due immediately. Construction delays fined daily. No details shared via email, single wire transfer only. Notarization by Rebecca Shaw. Immediate title and escrow opening. Somewhere, the intercom droned faintly. A staff member passed by. I tilted the page just enough to hide the signatures. I signed on the back of Luis's blazer. The ballpoint hissed across the cover like a blade cutting through rope. Marcus folded his arms, smirking the look of a man who just cracked open the right shipment. Luis snapped a photo of the signed document. His phone pinged. Escrow opened. Another ping followed. Preliminary title received. The board had turned. I was no longer the cargo being transported. I was the shipper. If I missed my timing, they'd trap me. If I hit it, by the time they realized, the new owner's name would already be on the deed. There was no for sale sign needed in the yard. From that moment on, the only sign that mattered existed in my mind. Sold freedom. Tuesday morning. While the residents of Willowgate waited for their therapy sessions and morning coffee, I prepared for a different kind of appointment, not with a doctor, not with my family, but with a realtor and a plan that could change the entire game. At 9:15, Luis Ortega called. "Community integration hour, sir. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Karen knows you're going out," I told her. "Your grandson is taking you to the farmer's market." "In December? A farmer's market?" "The best thing about a good story," he said, "is that it only needs to sound reasonable." A silver sedan with no markings rolled up to the side gate. Karen waved as usual, completely unaware that she had just waved goodbye to a man leaving assisted living to begin his counterattack. "Our first showing's at 9, Luis said as the car merged onto the highway. "Name's Mr. Whitaker, 62, from Minneapolis. Made his fortune in commercial pipe supply, sold the company, wants a lakeside home for fishing, tax efficiency, and quick closure. And the ADU clause? He's fine with it. Said it gives the house a story." We took a back route, avoiding neighbors, and more importantly, avoiding Daniel's Monday group meeting at 10:20 and Vanessa's 11 o'clock yoga class. My house stood as still as a retired battlefield, the roof unchanged, the white railings still gleamed. Only this time, I entered like an intruder. The key turned with a soft click, a small sound, but to me, it was victory's first note. At exactly 9, a dark blue Lexus LS glided up the driveway. A white man in his 60s stepped out, silver hair, casual but expensive clothes, the posture of someone who's worked a lifetime and now means to enjoy it. "Mr. Whitaker," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "Beautiful location, solid bones on this place." He moved through each room with the eyes of a man who'd assessed thousands of properties, seeing through furniture to structure. In the living room, that view's worth money. In the kitchen, tapping beneath the sink, cabinets will need a redo, no problem. Murmuring as he walked, open this wall, add a bar, recessed shelving. Then he stepped onto the balcony and stood still, staring at the lake. 1 minute, then another. That kind of silence had weight, the silence of someone who'd just seen a home with a soul. Finally, he turned. "All right." Luis summarized, "Detached ADU plus life lease. 100 days of temporary housing, paid by the buyer, during construction." Mr. Whitaker nodded. "I once had a boathouse caretaker at Door County for 15 years. We'll do this properly and legally." He looked at me. "You fish?" I hold a rod without turning it into a metaphor. He laughed genuinely. "Good. Fishing's just sitting still, letting the line go. That's all." He took out his phone. "My attorney will send proof of funds by 6 p.m. Luis, draft the terms today. I'll inspect, but I'm not nitpicking. I'm buying location and potential." As his car disappeared down the drive, Luis grinned. "That's your buyer." "That fast?" I asked. "When someone goes quiet on the balcony," he said, "it means they've already lived there in their mind. The rest is paperwork." Wednesday, 2 p.m., the second buyer arrived, Dr. Robert King, 68, a retired surgeon from Boston, looking for peace after 50 years in operating rooms. If Whitaker bought with instinct and money, Robert bought with the precision of eyes that had once seen beneath the skin. He inspected the hearth, noticed the slight tilt Margaret and I had meant to fix but never did, opened the electrical panel, nodded when he saw the upgraded 1,980 seconds wiring, ran his palm along the original wooden window frame. "Everyone replaces these, but this kind of wood has memory. Out on the balcony, he stood in the same spot as Whitaker the day before, his gaze, more analytical, less emotional, but no less deep. "I was taught," he said, "that a surgeon's duty is to the person on the table. Doesn't matter who they are, you respect them." He looked back toward the house. "Someone treated this place with respect. I can feel it in every choice." Luis asked about the ADU location. I led them to the back corner of the lot, 10 paces from the balcony, where the first sunlight touched the lawn. "Right here. A porch facing the lake, enough for 2 chairs and a silence between them." Robert nodded. "My architect will check the orientation. If you prefer morning light, we'll angle it for that." He smiled faintly. "My bank will send financial verification by 7 tonight. But if you get a stronger offer before that, take it. I don't bid wars. I just want to live quietly here." The drive back to Willowgate was wrapped in easy silence. Luis typed quickly, coordinating with Rebecca Shaw at the notary and the title escrow office, ready to press go the moment a buyer confirmed. "You'll have 2 offers," Luis said, his voice calm, factual, like reading an audit. "Whitaker might go higher. Businessmen compete by instinct. Robert will be clean and condition-free. Doctors hate ambiguity. Either way, you win." I glanced into the rearview mirror, watching the house shrink behind us like the past folding into the distance. My phone buzzed softly. An email had arrived. I didn't open it. I closed my eyes for a second. For the first time in years, the sound of a lock no longer meant being kept in. It meant keeping them out. My room at Willowgate was so quiet I could hear the hum of the air conditioner, steady, constant, but it was that very stillness that made me alert. When my phone vibrated, my heart skipped a beat. At my age, I no longer believed in coincidences. A message from Jasmine appeared. "Dad just came home for lunch and found a business card on the hallway table, Mallister and Finch, Property Title Office. He asked Mom if she'd called them. She said, no, but he started asking weird questions again." That card was a needle through the fabric of false peace, the first sign that the disguise was beginning to tear. I typed quickly, "What kind of questions?" Her reply came almost instantly. "He asked if you'd scheduled any appointments or if anyone's been coming by the house during the day. Mom said he's getting paranoid." "No, my girl, not paranoid. Instinct. And when the person holding power in a household starts asking questions, the clock has already begun to tick down." I deleted the entire conversation, sat quietly on the edge of my bed, counted 10 slow breaths, and called Luis Ortega. "They found something," I said, no preamble. "A business card." Daniel starting to suspect. "How deep?" Luis asked, voice dropping low, fingers clacking rapidly on a keyboard somewhere. "He's only asking questions for now, no accusations. But I've seen this pattern at the docks. It's only a matter of time before they open the container." Luis's tone shifted, calm, commanding, the sound of a man switching into operations mode. "Listen, Mr. Lawson. From this moment, every hour counts. I'll push both buyers to send their final offers by tomorrow morning. By noon, you choose one. Thursday, we open escrow. Title transfers next Tuesday. 10 days, no more. Can you keep Daniel away from the paperwork for 10 days? "I'll try. Try hard," Luis stressed. "From now on, all communication moves to the secure line, no regular email. If you get an unknown call, don't answer, and don't message Jasmine again, not even a period. If Daniel figures this out before the deed prints under a new owner's name, everything collapses instantly." That night, the fluorescent light reflected against the window glass, showing me 2 versions of the same man, an old man in pajamas and another, preparing for the final move of his life. I didn't sleep. Men who once worked customs like me know this. When your opponent starts asking questions, that's not the time to rest. It's the time to erase your tracks. The phone lit up again. Email 1. Mr. Whitaker, proof of funds, $420,000. Clean cash, no mortgage, no contingencies. I read the number and didn't feel my pulse quicken, only slow, because I knew someone had just placed real money on my plan. 20 minutes later, email 2. Dr. Robert King, $420,000. Conventional loan, pre-approved, straightforward terms. No complications. Two numbers. One represented speed, the other, stability. Both were exits, different doors leading to freedom. I forwarded both to Luis with a single line. Your move. His reply came in under a minute. Game's on. Tomorrow morning I'll draft both offers. Before noon you pick your buyer. Then we move. I looked up at the clock on the wall. 10 days. Each tick sounded like a hammer striking the lid of a shipping crate about to be sealed. If the transaction wasn't complete before Daniel inspected the cargo, everything would be confiscated, including my freedom. I lay back on the narrow bed, surrounded by beige walls that felt more like paper than paint. They thought I was being well cared for. They didn't know I was counting hours, balancing numbers, memorizing signatures. That house was about to change owners, but for the first time in years, I would be the one to name the price. A small ADU in the corner of the property, where the morning light touches first. A porch facing the lake. 2 wooden chairs and silence that belongs to no one else. Daniel Lawson made one fatal mistake. He thought old meant powerless. He thought being moved meant surrender. But in truth, he's guarding a battlefield where I planted my flag long ago. And when the title transfers, he'll learn one thing. When a father is silent, it doesn't mean he's lost. 10 days. 1 house. 2 buyers. And 1 old man misjudged by everyone. 7:10 a.m. The phone rang in the silent room like an alarm siren. The name Daniel flashed on the screen, not the call of a son, but of a man who hadn't slept all night and now demanded answers. Dad, he started, his tone more interrogation than concern. Did you happen to stop by Mallister and Finch recently? My heartbeat stayed steady. 30 years facing smugglers at the port had taught me how to keep my voice flat, smooth, and believable even when lying. Yes, they sent a notice about an escrow tax adjustment, I replied evenly. Why? He pressed. There was a business card on the hallway table. I just wanted to make sure everything's okay. It's fine. You know how tax offices are. They invent paperwork just to justify their paychecks. And I still know how to read numbers, Daniel. He hesitated. Yeah, just checking. How are you settling in at Willowgate? Getting used to it, I said, short and polished, leaving him nothing to grab onto. Good. We'll come by this weekend, take you out for lunch. Looking forward to it, I answered a polite lie. When I hung up, I set the phone down for a few seconds. When someone starts asking why, it means they've smelled blood. I texted Luis Ortega. He's onto something. Accelerate. Luis replied almost instantly. Got it. Mr. Whitaker accepted the terms last night. Escrow opens today. 2 p.m. meeting. Cover story. Taxes and banking. Keep your tone bureaucratic. At 2:20 p.m., I carried a folder of old tax papers, just enough to look official, down to the reception desk. Karen, I need to stop by the bank for some tax paperwork, I said. She smiled the way people do when they've heard every excuse residents make to leave. Luis is picking you up, right? I have it noted. My nephew's reliable, I answered with a smile that revealed nothing. A blue sedan, the kind churchgoers drive, pulled quietly up to the side gate, the kind of car no one remembers. We drove to Mallister and Finch, a narrow brick office squeezed between a dental clinic and a tax prep service, the kind of place 1,000 people pass daily without noticing. For me, it was a legal battlefield, a place where a signature could overturn an entire conspiracy. Inside, Rebecca Shaw sat behind a desk lined with neat stacks of files, her hair tied in a bun, her voice low and raspy, and eyes that had seen every kind of legal deceit yet somehow stayed calm. Mr. Lawson, she greeted, standing to shake hands. Luis filled me in. Let's review first. She typed rapidly, scanning her screen, then nodded. Owner of record, Henry Lawson. Last transfer date, August 2016. Refinance, recorded. Tax status, fully updated. Liens, none. Warnings, none. Files clean. That's all I needed to hear, I said. Now, Rebecca continued, pulling out another stack of papers, her tone crisp. We'll need a few items to close quickly. Listing agreement, Luis already has it. Purchase contract, We'll sign today if you approve the terms. And a letter confirming your decision-making capacity. Why? I asked, though I already knew. Because when families contest a sale, the first thing they claim is that the seller lacked capacity. Mrs. Caldwell's evaluation helps, but we need an official letter from your treating physician confirming your legal and financial competence. I have an appointment with Dr. Santos on Tuesday. I said, the one Vanessa had scheduled for me. Perfect. Keep it. Get that letter. We'll need it before recording at the county office. Rebecca nodded. Louise slid the purchase agreement across the table. Mr. Whitaker's offer sat there, black ink on white paper. $420,000 cash, no contingencies. Closing in 15 days. Buyer to construct detached ADU per Exhibit A. Life lease for seller, non-transferable, valid even upon resale. 100 days temporary housing at Maple Shore Residences, buyer funded. I read every line like inspecting cargo, slow, careful, not skipping a period. Not because I doubted Whitaker, but because for the first time in years, every clause was written on my terms. I signed. The pen scraped lightly against paper, a small sound, but to me it rang like a gavel overturning a verdict. On paper, I was no longer someone being cared for. I was someone in command. Mr. Whitaker has wired the earnest money, Louise said. He's serious, wants it done fast. So do I. Rebecca stacked the documents neatly, her professional tone softening. Next steps, I'll open escrow this afternoon. Louise will coordinate title and prelim. You'll keep your appointment with Dr. Santos to secure the capacity letter. Once that's in, I'll file for recording. If all goes smoothly, title transfers before Monday. I nodded. The papers were signed. The money was moving. The system was already in motion. As I left Mallister and Finch, I felt something both familiar and new, the sensation of returning to an old battlefield, only this time with the map in my own hands. On the other end of the line, Daniel still thought all I had left were memories. But a man who spent a lifetime guarding the gate knows sometimes memory is the only key sharp enough to break a lock built by your own blood. Tuesday morning. The air was cold, unnaturally still. Yet beneath that quiet surface, I could hear it clearly, the gears clicking into place, one by one, as a plan neared completion. The Willowgate bus rolled slowly down the street, carrying elderly residents to their routine checkups. But I wasn't going for a checkup. I was going to prove that I was still sane enough to sign a sentence, one that spared no one but my own son. Dr. Maria Santos was in her early 50s, glasses with thin silver frames, a soft voice that didn't invite lies. She looked at me over the rim of her glasses and opened my file. Mr. Lawson, she began, I understand your daughter-in-law made this appointment? That's right, without asking me first. She nodded and made a note. Do you want to go through with the evaluation? No, but I want a written statement confirming that I'm fully competent. I suspect my family will challenge some of the decisions I'm making. She smiled knowingly. Fair enough. Let's do the standard assessment. 20 minutes later, dates, current president, countdowns, drawing a clock. I answered slowly, precisely, like a mechanic tightening the last bolt before turning in the machine. This wasn't about memory. It was about the right to live as a free man. She leaned back, her conclusion deliberate and clear. Your cognitive function is completely intact. Excellent memory, sound judgment, full awareness of the consequences of your decisions. What kind of document do you need? I need a letter confirming legal and financial competence. She typed it immediately. The printer hummed softly and out slid a page that felt like a weapon being forged. She signed it boldly in dark ink and handed it to me. Certificate of capacity. The patient demonstrates clear understanding of complex decisions and long-term planning. No signs of cognitive decline. The patient is competent to sign legal documents, including, but not limited to, contracts, property transfers, and medical directives. Your daughter-in-law called yesterday, Dr. Santos added. She requested an advanced cognitive evaluation. I told her that unless you requested it or I saw cause for concern, there was no indication for that test. I understand. Thank you. She nodded, her voice soft but firm. Whatever you're planning, Mr. Lawson, remember, clarity is what they fear most. By Thursday afternoon, I brought the letter to Rebecca Shaw. She made 3 copies, one attached to the sale contract, one for title and insurance, and one for me. Everything's cleared for transfer, Rebecca said. Friday, 11 a.m. Can you make it? I'll be there. Friday. I told Karen I had another quick bank errand. She didn't even look up from her computer. Luis arrived at 10:20. We drove to Rebecca's office, where Mr. Whitaker was already waiting calm, collected, perfectly at ease. Mr. Lawson, he greeted, ready to make it official? More than ready. The room was bright white. The copier hummed steadily. The air smelled of ink and stale coffee, the scent of irreversible decisions. We signed one document after another. Purchase agreement, seller's disclosure, lead paint waiver, title insurance, ADU addendum, my lifetime lease agreement. Mr. Whitaker signed with the ease of a man who'd bought dozens of homes. I signed with the precision of someone reclaiming his freedom, each stroke of ink paving over the path they had built to my confinement. Rebecca confirmed, earnest money is in escrow. The balance will be wired Monday morning. By noon, the deed will officially record Mr. Whitaker as the new owner. Transaction complete. What about the current occupants? Mr. Whitaker asked. Rebecca slid another document forward. Notice to vacate deadline December 15th. After that, full possession reverts to you. You may proceed as you wish. He turned to me. I won't rush them. They have 40 days. But on day 41, my contractor begins building your ADU. Fair enough, I said. We stood, shook hands. Luis clapped me on the shoulder. Rebecca smiled, the quiet satisfaction of professionals who'd just closed a flawless, complicated deal. Congratulations, gentlemen, she said. Someone's about to receive a very interesting surprise this weekend. On the way back to Willowgate, Luis said, they're preparing a family visit party for you tomorrow. End quote. I heard. Daniel and Vanessa will be there. The wards too. Everyone wants to see how well you've adjusted. I looked out the window, light gliding across the glass, and smiled faintly. Then we should make the visit memorable. You're going to tell them there? I'm going to tell them exactly where they'll be standing when they realize the house they're living in no longer belongs to me. I paused, then added, sometimes the best place to deliver bad news is a public one where people have no choice but to stay polite. Luis chuckled. You're playing chess, and they're still playing checkers. I replied evenly, I've been playing chess since before they were born. They just forgot that. The LED ceiling lights cast a cold, hospital-like glow over the orange tablecloth. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and vanilla from the trays of cookies, a kind of industrial warmth. A piano in the corner played a pre-recorded melody, but the speaker skipped half a beat, just enough for a trained ear to hear that the sound wasn't alive. The Willowgate Recreation Room had its chairs arranged into little clusters for community connection. I stood near the window close to the exit. At 4:15, Daniel's SUV pulled in, followed by the ward's silver Infiniti QX60. All 4 of them entered as if they were one united front. Daniel buttoned his blazer, Vanessa straightened her dress hem. Robert and Helen Ward arrived in matching beige, the uniform of tidy reassurance. Dad, Daniel said with the practiced warmth of a salesman, this place looks great. You settling in? I'm learning its rhythm, I replied shortly. Karen tapped the microphone, inviting everyone to share life lessons learned the hard way. The room filled with polite laughter and half-finished nods. Across the way, Marcus Bell lifted his coffee cup in greeting. Near the door, Luis Ortega stood disguised as a guest. Our eyes met one nod. The signal. Daniel, Vanessa, I said quietly, come with me for a moment. I want to introduce you to someone. They followed me to the window overlooking the courtyard, where Mr. Whitaker stood waiting, khakis, wool sweater, calm and steady. This is Mr. Whitaker. A pleasure, he said, shaking their hands sincerely. Daniel shook back out of reflex. Are you visiting someone here, sir? In a way, Mr. Whitaker smiled at me. I took a deep breath. The 5 steps of reckoning began. 1. The announcement. I sold the house. The transfer was recorded yesterday afternoon. The napkin under Vanessa's hand froze. Daniel's mouth opened, then closed. I'm sorry, you what? 2. The evidence. I opened a file folder with a gold felt clip and pulled out the top sheet. Recording code, 3:45 p.m., Friday. Deposit already in escrow. Closing set for 11 a.m., Monday. You can watch the process if you like, but the process is done. 3. The legal armor. Dad, you're in assisted living. How could Priost? The papers weren't in my bedroom. They were at the county office, I said evenly, placing 2 documents on the table, Mrs. Caldwell's evaluation and Dr. Santos's letter. Fully alert, independent in all daily activities, oriented to time, place, and person, legally and financially competent. 4. The naked truth. Vanessa's voice cracked. When did you even do this? How? While you were rearranging my house and scheduling doctor appointments I never asked for, I slid another paper forward, their signed inventory list. Your relocation record. Very helpful. 5. The consequence. The notice to vacate, I said, placing the final page down. 40 days to remove people and possessions. After that, Mr. Whitaker has full ownership. Daniel's confusion turned to anger. You can't just... I can, I said calmly. Sole owner, me. No lien, no guardianship, no power of attorney. Legal transaction. Clean funds. Recording numbers right here. Vanessa's voice trembled. Then where are we supposed to go? You both have salaries. Your parents just sold their condo you'll manage. And 40 days is generous. That's longer than the notice you gave me the day you showed up with 7 suitcases. I looked directly at Helen Ward. Harborview Apartment still has openings. Helen flushed. This is cruel. We're family. You can't throw family out on the street. Helping starts with asking permission, not setting a schedule, I replied. Safety isn't an excuse to confiscate someone's life. Robert shook his head. We were helping you. Helping means respecting autonomy, not removing it because it's more convenient. Vanessa's hands shook as she poured water. You did all this while we were taking care of you. While I was taking back control of my life, I finished for her. Mr. Whitaker stepped forward, offering his hand to Daniel. Mr. Lawson, for the next 40 days I'll be a quiet neighbor, no contractors, no noise, no pressure. On day 41, my crew begins building your father's cottage. Cottage? Daniel repeated, blankly. In the back garden, I said calmly. 10 steps from the balcony, 2 bedrooms, kitchen, bathroom, porch facing the lake, built per Exhibit A. I have a life lease. I stay as long as I choose. Vanessa exhaled sharply. You'd really let some old man live in the backyard that'll ruin the resale. Mr. Whitaker smiled patiently. I'm 72, and I just bought my final home. I didn't buy for profit. I bought for peace, and I won't take from someone what he deserves to keep. The outer circle went silent. Spoons stopped stirring. The piano speaker hissed faintly. Rebecca Shaw stepped forward, voice crisp and official. Recording completed Tuesday, 11 a.m. By 1:25 p.m., county records listed new owner, Mr. Whitaker. There is no undo button for this process. If you'd like to verify, the record number is right there. The county will confirm. This can't be legal, Robert muttered. It's entirely legal, Rebecca said. The only unusual clause is the life lease, but it's fully valid. Daniel's anger cracked into realization. You did this because we moved you here. I did this because you forgot I'm still a person, I said softly. You forgot whose name was on the deed. You forgot that after 30 years in customs, I can spot a smuggled item from miles away. And you forgot that old doesn't mean helpless. We just wanted you safe, he whispered. You wanted my house, I corrected. Safety was just the packaging. From the doorway, Jasmine stepped in, eyes wide. Grandpa. Hello, dear. I'm sorry you had to hear it here, but public places teach people manners. She looked from her parents back to me. You tried to tell them. They just didn't listen. Jasmine, stay out of this, Vanessa snapped. No, Jasmine said firmly, standing tall. You don't get to steal someone's life and call it love. Behind them, Ethan whispered, Are we moving? Yes, we're moving, Daniel said, his voice heavy as stone. Marcus slipped me 2 cups of punch. Figured you'd need a drink after that speech. Marcus Bell, my old customs partner, I introduced. He helped me see my options. The options we never gave you, Daniel sighed, and in that sigh, something cracked. Options exist only when you treat someone like an adult, I said. I had to create mine because you treated me like a problem. Daniel lifted his head. Can we talk? Really talk somewhere private? 40 days, I answered. You have 40 days to find a place and move out. After that, we'll talk if you've learned anything by then. They turned away, unsteady, like people who just realized the ground wasn't where they left it. Jasmine hugged me tight and fast. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you too, I said, for telling the truth when no one else would. Mr. Whitaker raised his cup. To new beginnings. To setting things right, not revenge, I echoed Marcus's words from last week. Luis appeared, grinning. Went about as brutally perfect as I expected. Depends if they understand the lesson, I said, looking out toward the courtyard. Either way, in 100 days, I'll have my cottage with a porch facing the morning sun at Maple Shore Residences until it's built. And you'll fish whenever you want, Mr. Whitaker added. Whenever I want, I repeated. The gathering continued. Karen brought more cookies. The piano missed another note. I stood beside Marcus, Luis, and Mr. Whitaker, lighter than I'd felt in a month. The game hadn't just ended. I'd won. And sometimes, victory isn't about gaining more, it's about reclaiming what was yours all along. Tuesday morning was the color of carbon paper, dull, gray, and heavy, like something filed in a courthouse drawer. The wall clock ticked out a cold rhythm. Cars hissed in the parking lot. I sat in my Willowgate room, reviewing documents, thinking the day would be routine. Noon signing, final transfer, clean closure. Then came 2 short knocks, a pause, and the door opened quietly. Jasmine slipped in. One look at her face, and I knew this morning wasn't routine. It was a battlefield. Grandpa, she whispered, closing the door. Mom just filed this. A golden folder appeared, corner bent, embossed seal, fresh ink. Just a glimpse of the red stamp through the cover told me everything. This one carried weight. Inside, petition for guardianship over Henry Lawson. Petitioner, Vanessa Lawson. Supporting affidavits, Helen and Robert Ward. Citing concerns of cognitive decline, susceptibility to manipulation, and inability to manage complex financial decisions. I read it twice, hands steady even as the heat of anger climbed my chest. They'd gone nuclear. If they couldn't stop the sale, they'd try to erase my capacity altogether. Jasmine spoke softly. It includes an ex parte emergency request for temporary guardianship without notice. And? I asked, though her eyes already gave me the answer. It was denied. The judge reviewed Dr. Santos's letter, and Mrs. Caldwell's evaluation ruled there was no emergency basis. But they scheduled a hearing in 2 weeks. Thursday. I sat on the edge of the bed. Your mother truly thinks she can convince a judge I'm incompetent. Her lawyer does, Jasmine said. Their argument is that you made a major financial decision right after entering assisted living under the influence of someone with a vested interest, and that the speed of the transaction shows poor judgment. Speed, I said slowly, is the mark of someone who knows exactly what he's doing and refuses to give them time to interfere. I added quietly, the only time I can be manipulated is when I drop the pen, and today, it's still in my hand. I wrote down the case number, the judge's name, and the hearing date on a scrap of paper. They'd filed ex parte to steal my time. I'd steal the timeline back. Does your father know? I don't think so, Jasmine said. It has Mom and the Ward's signatures. Dad's been silent since Saturday, probably processing. He'd better process fast, I said, because if this motion moves forward, even if I win, everything freezes the cottage, Maple Shore, all of it, until court clears it. Her phone buzzed. She glanced down. Luis texted something's happening at the house. 20 minutes later, Luis Ortega drove us there. A red paper flapped on a wooden sawhorse across the lawn, stamped stop work order in bold. The city seal gleamed in the morning light. Mr. Whitaker stood at the driveway, his face tight. A woman in a hard hat with a clipboard measured near the boundary stake. A young city inspector leaned against his truck, looking uncomfortable with his assignment. "Mr. Lawson," Whitaker said when he saw me, "we've had an anonymous complaint claims of setback violation and encroachment on wetlands." "Wetlands?" I shot back. "This lawn's been mowed for 40 years. Analyst Rhodes, Whitaker's architect, arrived carrying a bundle of blueprints. The complaint alleges the cottage foundation is too close to the lot line and may sit inside a protected area. Both false. We have surveys and soil tests, but the city has to investigate every complaint." The young inspector approached, apologetic. "Sorry, Mr. Lawson. Procedure says I have to post the stop work notice during review." "Who filed it?" He glanced at his tablet. "Anonymous, through the city website, submitted at 6 a.m. 6 o'clock the moment the gates opened. Someone had waited for it." "This is harassment," Whitaker said flatly. "Our permits are clean. Whoever filed this knows it." A white sedan pulled up. A woman stepped out, late 50s, sharp suit, authority in her posture. Badge on her chest. Chief Building Inspector Carla Martinez. "Carla Martinez," she introduced herself to Rhodes. "Let me see the permits and plans." Rhodes handed her the thick file. She flipped through it, quickly, practiced, precise. Then she and the young inspector paced the property, measuring distances, checking the footings, inspecting soil markers. After 5 minutes, she returned to the sawhorse, tore down the red paper, scribbled notes, and stamped her clipboard. "Compliant," she declared. She handed the signed confirmation to the inspector. "No setback violation, no wetland encroachment. This area's been residential for decades. Complaint is unfounded." Then she turned to me. "Mr. Lawson, you may resume construction. I'll note in the system that the claim was investigated and baseless. If more anonymous complaints come in, this address will be flagged." "Thank you," I said. "Don't thank me," Carla replied. "Thank whoever taught you to keep meticulous records. Your permit file is flawless." The world seemed to exhale. The caution tape fluttered. Dry maple leaves rolled across the pavement. Rhodes leaned close and murmured, "They play delay games. We play paperwork." Just then, a silver Acura MDX screeched into the driveway. Helen Ward stormed out, righteous fury burning in her eyes, the kind of person who believes rules are for other people. "What's going on?" she snapped, pointing at the stakes. "You can't just build whatever you want without approval." "We have every approval," Rhodes said calmly. "Permit issued, inspection passed, complaint dismissed." "This is my daughter's home," Helen shouted. "No, ma'am," Whitaker replied evenly. "It's mine since Friday, and your daughter has 36 days to vacate." Helen's face flushed crimson. "We'll see about that." She spun around, climbed into her car, and sped off. My phone rang. "Daniel." "Dad," his voice strained. "I just found out about the guardianship petition. I didn't know. Vanessa and her parents filed it without telling me." "I believe you," I said, and surprised myself by meaning it. "I'm going to talk to her. This isn't right. You're not incompetent. I might be angry about the house, but that petition is lying to the court." "Then go to court and tell the truth," I said. "Tell them your father is the same man he's always been. The only thing that changed is I stopped letting you decide for me." "I will. I'll make her withdraw it." "Do that. And remember, if it goes to hearing, I'll bring everything. Mrs. Caldwell's report, Dr. Santos's letter, the inventory signed by you two, the deposit receipt under your names. Every piece, proving this was your plan, not my incapacity." He exhaled. "I understand." By Wednesday afternoon, Jasmine sent a screenshot. "Notice of withdrawal petition for guardianship, filed by attorney for Vanessa Lawson. Attached note. Petitioner has received additional information confirming respondent's full competency. Filing was based on medical misunderstanding." Jasmine texted, "You made Mom back down." Thursday morning, another message. Petition dismissed without prejudice. Case closed. Without prejudice meant they could, in theory, refile, but only with new evidence. And there was none. I called Daniel. "Thank you." I should have stopped it before it was filed, he said quietly. I should have seen what Vanessa was planning instead of just being angry. You outplayed us. You're learning, I said. That's enough. He hesitated. Can I come see the cottage site? Not to interfere, just to see what you're building. Saturday, 10 a.m., I said. Bring work gloves if you want to help. A pause. You want my help? You're my son, I said simply. This cottage needs more than 2 hands. They might as well be yours. I looked out at the Willowgate parking lot, the place that had once felt like exile, now just a temporary launch pad for the next chapter. The counterattack had failed, the petition withdrawn, the stop work order lifted, and in 100 days, I would have a porch facing the morning sun built on the ground that was mine by right, not by permission. Sometimes, righting a wrong takes patience. Sometimes, it takes paperwork. And sometimes, it takes sitting still long enough for your opponents to realize they've been playing the wrong game from the start. I called Rhodes. When do we break ground? Monday morning, she said. Weather's clear, foundation poured by Wednesday. Then let's build, I replied. They tried to use the court to stop the foundation. I used the foundation to stop them. Tuesday morning was clear but biting cold, the kind of November chill that turns breath into pale smoke hanging in the damp air. The excavator screeched across the wet ground, the scent of metal mixing with freshly turned soil, sharp, earthy, alive like a heart cut open, ready to be stitched anew. The cold that morning didn't come only from the wind, but from the hollow space being cleared, a place demolished so something new could rise. I stood at the edge of the lot where my cottage would soon take shape, watching the steel bucket lower in steady rhythm. Analyst Rhodes moved between the wooden beams like a conductor before an orchestra steel ruler catching the sunlight, gestures sharp, precise, and wordless. At exactly 11 o'clock, Daniel Lawson's SUV turned into the driveway. He stepped out, jeans, work boots, a dusty jacket. His fingers gripped the coffee thermos so tightly the knuckles whitened. His eyes were wary, uncertain. You came, I said. I did, he replied quietly. The silence between us hung thick like wet concrete not yet set. If you haven't changed your mind, he murmured. I don't break promises anymore, I answered. Rhodes brushed dirt off her gloves and approached. You must be Daniel. Your father talks about you. I hope that's good, he said, awkwardly. It's true. And truth is better than good, she replied. You here to watch or to work? To work, if there's work. Then hold this beam while I level the line. Her voice dropped firm and clean like the first nail driven into new timber. For the next 3 hours, I watched my son take instructions from someone half his age. He held planks, measured corners, hammered nails, a few straight, a few bent, a few missed entirely. Sweat dampened his collar, his gloves were streaked with sawdust and paint. Rhodes never scolded him. She just nodded, adjusted the mark, and showed him again, patient, precise, unhurried. It's like writing a sentence, Daniel said, catching his breath as the frame took shape. Miss one word and the whole thing collapses. Difference is, Rhodes replied, you can rewrite a sentence, but with a house, you've got to get it right the first time. If you don't, you tear it down and start over. Daniel looked over at me, and in his eyes, something flickered understanding. Some mistakes can't be patched with apologies. They have to be measured, dismantled, and rebuilt from the ground up. Near noon, another car pulled to the curb. Vanessa Lawson stepped out, holding a covered metal tray, walking carefully as though testing whether she was allowed to cross the invisible line. I brought lunch, she said softly. Carrot cake, my grandmother's recipe. I looked at the tray, then at her face for the first time. I saw hesitation, humility, something real, hopefully without any legal ingredients, I said, half joking, half not. She smiled faintly, a small, honest smile that made the entire worksite pause for just a moment. We did wrong, she admitted quietly. I know that now. This is just something I can make right. I took the tray. Thank you. We sat together on a pile of lumber, 5 people, the homeowner, the son, the daughter-in-law, the architect, and the builder passing around soft slices of cake. The wind threaded through the empty frame, and the sounds of knives on metal and cups tapping wood filled the space with an odd, gentle rhythm. "The house feels different without you," Vanessa said quietly. "Empty. We thought we were just making room for family, but we pushed out the one person who made it home." "You can still make a home," I said, "just not in my house anymore." "We're looking at a place on Cedar Lane," she continued. 3 bedrooms, small yard. We can afford it on our own." "That's good," I nodded. "Independence suits people better than comfort built on someone else's loss." When we finished eating, Rhodes handed over a long plank. Daniel held it steady. I adjusted the corner. She hammered in the final nail. The sound rang crisp, bright, decisive, echoing through the open air. I realized then, what we were building wasn't just a cottage. It was a second chance, a new way of saying we're trying again. By afternoon, the sunlight warmed to gold. The chalk lines fluttered softly. The foundation stakes sat firm, heartbeat steady again. Daniel took a marker and wrote across the beam, "Measure twice, cut once." I slipped my notebook into my pocket. Inside it, lists of materials, expenses, and the schedule for the concrete pour. The man who'd once been stripped of authority now held the blueprint of his own life again. A foundation doesn't just carry a house, it carries the person who builds it. When it's laid right, it holds everything together. And reconciliation, like construction, never starts at the roof. It begins in the soil, exactly where something once fell apart. In the weeks that followed, life found its rhythm again. The mornings began with the growl of engines, the afternoons ended on schedule, and between them were the sounds that marked progress. The slow, steady thud of hammers, the even rasp of saws, the rhythmic beep-beep of reversing trucks. The wind whistled through the bare wooden frames like the breath of a house learning to breathe. Each beam that rose felt like a heartbeat restored. Each plank joined to another, like a memory being threaded back together this time, one no one could take away. By Thanksgiving, the roof was up, the windows fitted, and standing inside, one could already imagine the warmth once the walls and floors were finished. Daniel came every Saturday some weeks earlier than the crew, checking the framing himself. Sometimes he brought Ethan, the boy studying the blueprints with a focus far beyond his years. Vanessa came less often, but when she did, she brought food, asked questions about materials, and picked up every fallen screw. She no longer came to command, but to understand. Jasmine had started working part-time at Rebecca Shaw's office, sorting files and learning how ownership passed through paper signatures, seals. "One day I want to study law," she told me. "Property law. Not to sue anyone, but to help people keep what belongs to them." "Good," I nodded. "The world needs people who understand that paperwork isn't just for punishment, it's also for protection." In mid-December, while unpacking old boxes Daniel and Vanessa had sent to storage, I found a plain manila envelope sealed with yellowed tape. A shaft of light slipped through the window crack, landing on the faded handwriting of Margaret. "For when the house becomes too big." My hands trembled as I opened it. The tape peeled away softly. The scent of old paper carried a faint trace of jasmine, her perfume. Inside was a 3-page letter, dated 13 years ago, just after her diagnosis. "To my dearest Henry, if you're reading this, I'm likely too old to see the moment you'll need it. I know you, and I know how our son loves his parents. When people love deeply, they sometimes forget to ask permission before they help. The house will feel too big when I'm gone. Don't let them convince you that the answer is to leave. Build something smaller, near the water. Somewhere you can hear the waves. A place with 2 chairs for morning coffee. A porch where rain sounds right. Remember to make the roof sloped. You've always said flat roofs belong to people who don't respect the weather. If Daniel tries to care for you by taking away your choices, forgive him but don't surrender. He means well. He's just forgotten that you were the one who taught him how to stand tall. So, teach him again. And when you sit on your porch, keep 1 chair for me. I'll be there in the morning light, in the sound of the water, and in the way you still drink your coffee too hot, too black. With love, Margaret." The M in her name curled long like an embrace frozen in ink. I stopped at the line, "Teach him again." A single tear fell, blurring the word forgive. I called Daniel. Come to the site. Bring Vanessa. They arrived within the hour. I handed Daniel the letter without a word. He stood inside the framed outline of a window, sunlight slanting across his face. Vanessa stood behind him, her shadow folding into his. The breeze slipped through the unfinished room, making the paper edge tremble like Margaret's last whisper of farewell. When he finished reading, Daniel lifted his eyes, damp with recognition. She knew. She knew exactly what we'd forget and what you'd need. Your mother knew you loved me enough to make mistakes, I said softly. And she knew I loved you enough to forgive as long as you learned from them. Vanessa wiped her eyes. She wrote this 13 years ago. That's human nature, I replied. She understood people sometimes better than I did. Daniel held the letter with both hands, returning it carefully as though it were more fragile than memory itself. His shoulders dropped, his breath slowed. I'm sorry, Dad, for everything. I looked at him, and for the first time, he wasn't trying to win. I know, I said. Now go build the porch, Daniel. Your mother already saved you a seat. Don't leave it empty too long. We got back to work. The hammers beat steady the heartbeat of the house and of me. Afternoon light poured through the frame, turning each dust mote into strands of gold. The house grew taller each day, while the emptiness inside me shrank just enough to let memory fit. A foundation holds a house upright. Memory holds a man the same way. And sometimes, forgiveness is nothing more than placing another chair on the porch, so the one you love always has somewhere to sit. The winter morning was clear as freshly polished glass. Every gust brushing over the tin roof sounded like a long exhale after 4 months of strain. The wood creaked softly as it expanded, frost clung cold to the door handle, and my little cottage stood there calm, composed, a quiet explosion point in the middle of stillness. By Christmas, the walls and doors were up. By New Year's, the tiled bathroom and finished floors were done. At the end of January, Analyst Rhodes handed me a stamped document, the certificate of occupancy. You're officially allowed to move in, she said. I looked at the seal, then at the house, once just lines on paper, and felt something inside me finally settle. Let's go home. That Saturday morning, frost made the ground shimmer. I packed the few belongings from Maple Shore residences into 2 boxes, said goodbye to those who had helped me through 90 days, and met Luis Ortega by the curb. Ready? He asked. I've been ready for a long time, I said. The cottage stood exactly where I had pictured it. White walls, moss-green trim, tin roof ready to sing when it rains, a deep porch with 2 chairs and the space between them reserved for conversation. Inside, everything was simple but precise, my personal blueprint in physical form. The kitchen shelf, stopping right at my reach. A shower rail placed on the weaker leg's side, functional yet discreet, and windows opening toward the lake I'd known for 40 years. I turned the key. The latch clicked, not loud, but heavy enough to close an entire chapter. When I flipped the light switch, the room filled with warm gold, a quiet affirmation. This place is yours. By noon, friends began to arrive, each carrying something symbolic. Marcus Bell brought an old enamel mug, for drinking the strongest thing there is, freedom. Luis Ortega carried a pot of desert cactus. This one's hard to kill, he said. Rebecca Shaw handed over a sealed envelope. Copies of every document, title insurance recorded. Mrs. Caldwell from Willowgate brought a handwritten card. Independence is the best medicine. Mr. Dunbar, from the docks, gave me an old fishing rod with a faded engraving H+M. When you remember how to fish, I'll be waiting, he said. Mr. Whitaker came last, bringing nothing but the quiet satisfaction of a man who bought the right place, the right way. We gathered on the porch. Mr. Whitaker raised his cup. To repair, he said. We toasted that old word deeper than revenge. A car pulled in. Helen Ward stepped out alone, holding a tin box. She fumbled with the lid. A butter cookie fell to the step. Her armor fell with it. Henry, she said, forcing a smile. I brought butter cookies, not gray this time. Then she exhaled. I was wrong. I thought safety meant control. that helping meant deciding, that old meant useless. I used to think caring meant taking the wheel from someone else, she continued. True care, I replied, is sitting in the passenger seat and staying quiet when the road doesn't go your way. I don't know how to be that person, she admitted. Practice, I said. Start at Thanksgiving. You're invited if you can sit still and let someone else make mistakes without comment. I'll try, she whispered. For her, that was enough. After she left, Daniel and Vanessa arrived with Ethan and Jasmine. They just moved into their new house on Hawthorne Avenue, smaller, but theirs. How's the new place? I asked. Good, Daniel said. Turns out independence feels better than I thought. I almost told him about the quiet arrangement with Mr. Whitaker and the deposit I'd secretly transferred to help him, but didn't. Some lessons last only when the learner believes they learned them alone. Oh, Jasmine said, pulling an envelope from her bag. Found this in Rebecca's office. It's addressed to me and Ethan, dated 14 years ago. She opened it, eyes brightening. From Grandma Margaret. She opened a savings account for us for college, a first apartment, or to buy time to think clearly. How much? Ethan asked. Enough, Jasmine smiled. Enough not to borrow for law school. Daniel looked at me. Did you know? Only recently, I said. Your mother always planned for a future she wouldn't live to see. We stood on the porch as the afternoon light painted the land gold, a family once broken, learning how to fit back together. Not by rewinding the past, but by rebuilding what's still aligned. Thank you, Dad, Daniel said quietly, for not giving up on us. Giving up, I smiled, was never part of the job description. Everyone left. The sun sank behind the trees. I sat in one of the two chairs, the other wasn't truly empty. Margaret was still here in the morning light, in the sound of water, and in her words, build small, near the water, with a roof that sings the right rain. I had done all three. I spread the blanket Jasmine gave me, placed the record player between the chairs, the one Daniel and Vanessa once boxed away. The needle dropped. Ella Fitzgerald began to hum Summertime. At 10 o'clock, rain arrived, not fierce, but patient, as if it knew it had the whole night. Rain tapped the roof, Ella sang, and the lake joined in three sounds merging into one steady heartbeat. I remembered what Marcus Bell told me 4 months ago. Repair, not revenge. Revenge burns hot and leaves ash. Repair restores balance and puts things back where they belong. I hadn't destroyed anyone. Daniel still had his family, his job, his dignity. Vanessa still had her marriage, and her dreams simply redirected. Helen and Robert Ward still had their daughter and now understood the line between helping and control. What I reclaimed was never truly theirs. A home sold to someone who values it. Autonomy, proven by documents and sealed letters. The right to decide something others are now forced to respect. In the big house up front, the old bedroom light still glowed. Mr. Whitaker was likely reading, learning the quirks of the pipes and the winter draft. In a few weeks, we'd meet at the docks, two old men fishing, talking about everything and nothing. Over on Hawthorne Avenue, Daniel and Vanessa were learning to live within their means, choosing, failing, deciding again without expecting a safety net. They'd be fine. They were learning. And I finally understood. Living right matters more than never being wrong. The rain thickened. I pulled the blanket closer and thought about the word home. Not just the cottage behind me, though I loved it. Not just the ground beneath my feet, though it bore my name. Home is the freedom to sit in the rain you choose, drink coffee as strong as you like, listen to the song you love, on a porch you designed in a space no one can take from you, because you built it with paperwork, persistence, and a gentle kind of defiance. The record ended. The needle lifted softly. The rain kept falling. The lake kept answering. I sat between those sounds right where I belonged. Repair lasts longer than revenge because it still stands in the morning. Paperwork isn't a weapon. It's a fence for when love loses its direction. I didn't defeat anyone. I simply set things back in their rightful place. Balance restored. Life back in my own hands. And that was enough. When a father is seen as weak, he doesn't need anger to prove his strength. He only needs to rebuild carefully, steadily, and in silence until the world has no choice but to recognize no one has the right to take his choices away. The story of Henry Lawson isn't just about a house rebuilt from wood. It's about freedom reclaimed through quiet determination. It reminds us that repair lasts longer than revenge because by morning, it still stands. If you've felt the truth in this journey, the journey of reclaiming respect, family, and the right to live on your own terms, hit like, subscribe to Worthy Revenge, and share this video to spread the message. Revenge isn't about destruction, it's about setting everything back where it truly belongs.